today I'm going to talk about our data view tools for SharePoint, which is actually a set of web parts which enable you to retrieve data from various types of sources and to display them in various ways using many types of controls. These web parts are available on SharePoint Online, SharePoint 2019 server, and also in Teams, as I will show later in this session. So what are we talking about? We have several web parts. We have the list view plus, which connects to a local or remote list and displays that list in enhanced UI. We have the aggregator, which can aggregate data from many sources and display them in various ways, and so on. You can see the calendar and the org chart. We have an upcoming chart web part, which also belongs to this family. And we also have the data view plus web part, which is actually a superset of all these web parts that you see. Now, what can you do with these web parts? So for example, you can have an organization chart, which is connected to your Azure Active Directory or to SharePoint Profile Service or to a SharePoint list or Excel. You can configure it to show the employees by department. As you can see here, you can display configurable filters. I'll show some more examples later on. Another example is using the list aggregator to aggregate data from Graph API. So through Graph API, you can connect to Azure Active Directory, like you can see here, list of AD users, or see my recent OneDrive files, both available through Graph API. Another example is, as you can see on the right, a calendar which aggregates events, again, from many SharePoint sites and lists, or from Graph API. So you can connect to Exchange Online or to group calendars, as I will show later in this session. All these web parts are using SharePoint framework. So they're all fully responsive, which means they look great also in handheld devices. Same goes for the gallery web part, which has many types of displays and can aggregate the display pictures from various sources. And finally, you can also have a custom layout, such as these two I will show later, such as a risk chart or ability to connect to external streams and have them displayed exactly as you want. So we'll get to this also. What I'm going to do now is start from scratch. I'm going to show you, once you add the package to your tenant app catalog, how you add the web port, how you connect to a data source, and there are many types of data sources, and how you compose your layout using the building blocks like in a Lego, and how you configure the controls to get the exact UI that you require. So let's go to our first demo. I have here an empty page. I'm going to switch to edit mode, and I'm going to add a web part. And once you add the package, as I said, the data view tools package, you'll see all the QuizCom web parts. Okay, so I'm going to add the list view plus web part, which is one of the web parts in the data view tools package. It's this one. And the first thing you need to do is to connect to a data source. You do it by clicking here, configure data source, or by clicking this icon here. So I'm going to add my first data source, and I'm going to give it a name. So let's call it budget requests. I'm going to connect to a list. And here you select, because this is a list view web part, the only data source available is the SharePoint list. Now you can connect to any list in the current site collection. You can pick it to any site, or you can just connect to any remote site. So I'm going to connect to a remote site that I have here. Just a minute. So I just pasted the site URL. So it's another on my QA site collection. And I'm going to connect to a list called event budget requests. And I'm going to select a view. It's going to be the all items view. And immediately you see the results. Okay. As soon as I connected to a data source, you see here the result in some kind of a table. Okay. I'm going to go back to my data source configuration. You can also limit the number of items that you wish to get, and you can also define color coding, and that's relevant. I'll show in additional examples when you connect to multiple data sources. Okay, currently I have just a single data source, which is called budget request. But if I connect to multiple data sources, like multiple lists, for example, I will get an overlay of all these lists. Okay, so I connected to this list. Now let's see what I have here. So you can see that by default I got all these controls, right? So I have here a header, and then I have a menu bar, which by default shows two menus here: export to Excel and delete selected. I have the folders, paging, and a table control, which displays the data that was retrieved from the data source. Okay, what can I do now to customize the display? So I'm going here to the customize layout button at the top. And as you can see, I can turn on and off features. These are the controls that I see on the screen. So I can add conditional formatting, search, tabs or groups, and so on. I can also change the display controls. Currently, I see a table. I will change it later to a list. And I can also customize the display using our style editor. And finally, I can export and import all the settings to other web parts, assuming I'm doing this on my dev environment and I want to import all the settings to my production environment. Okay, so I won't have to do it again. So let's start off by adding the tabs control. Okay, so I'm just switching it on, and I'm going back here. So now you see also I got here the tabs control. A tab control simply groups the display data in tabs. So currently by default it grouped it by the active column. But if I want to group by another column, let's say I would like to group by the city column, I'll just go to the city column, and I'm dragging it over here to the tabs control. Okay, so you see that now I have, you know what, let's go to view mode. I want to see how the end user sees it now. Okay, so now my events are grouped by the city column. Okay, so let's go back to edit mode. And once I'm using any control, the control has additional settings. So in the tabs control, I'll click here the configure control button, and I got some additional settings. So for example, here I'm grouping by city, but I can change it to group by other columns. Okay, I select what to group by. Now, every control has two modes of configuration. There's the simple mode, which shows less properties. And if you click here, switch to advanced mode, you'll see more properties. We do it because we don't want to overwhelm less technical users. So we show by default only the most common properties that users like to configure. You switch to advanced mode, we show more properties to configure. So now I switch the render as tabs to get a better display here. And also I can change the tab text. Currently it just shows the name of the column, and it shows the number of items in this group. But you can change it. You see, it's a formula. So every field here, you can edit it and change it to be more dynamic by using knockout code or our component snippets. But currently, I'll leave it as is. So we got our tabs. Next thing I would like to add here is, next thing I'd like to add here is a filter control. So I'm clicking here, switching on the search. And now you see the filter control. And I can add any columns that I want to filter by to my filter. I'm just clicking the plus, and I got these controls. Okay, so any of these controls acts as filters its own columns. But for example, if I go here and I can select the city that I wish to filter by, or maybe I would like to have multiple cities. Okay, but it also behaves as a textual filter. All the filters, regardless of their type. So if I just type here Toronto or just TOR, it will filter by Toronto. Okay, so if we go to a numeric field, for example, so I got these pickers here, and I can, you know what, let's add a date filter as well. So event date, yes. So here I got the, let's save this. Okay, so you see I got here the picker, the date picker, which allows me to select a range of dates. Okay, which allows me to, I got nothing in this range, but you got the idea. And also you see in a numeric field, I have a slider to pick a range. Okay, so all these filters behave according to their type. They present relevant pickers, but all of them are also textual filters. The first filter is different. This is not a column filter. This is a search box. So it searches all the columns in one shot, and you can decide if you want to display all these filters or only part of them, or maybe I don't want the search filter, so I can go here and turn it off, like don't show the free text filter, for example. So it's up to you. Now, additional things that you can do with the filter, sometimes you as the administrator, as the one who configures this filter, sometimes people want to configure a filter and save it. So you can save it. For example, if I want to filter here to show only events taking place in Barrie and I don't know, in Barrie and in Newmarket, okay? And I want the Webpart to display this filter by default when every user browses this page. So in design time, if I click the save, it will ask me, do you want to save it for everyone, for all the users, or just for yourself? So this way I can save a custom filter for all the users. This also works for an end user. The only difference you see here, as an end user, I can also click save, but this will save the current filter for myself only. Okay, it will not affect other users. So this is what you can do with the filter control. Just create your own custom filter. By the way, you can also hide the filter. So if you want to create a filter and hide it from the user so they won't be able to mess it up, you can also do that. Okay, let's add another effect here. By the way, instead of these tabs, I can change it to groups. Sometimes users prefer to have like accordion section grouping instead of tabs, like you see here, okay? So it's also possible. Going back here to the custom control configuration, so let's lose the tabs for now. And I want to add some conditional formatting. So when I switch on the conditional formatting control, you got this control which appears empty. And you can add rules. So for example, let's add a rules that highlights the events that require a budget higher than $20,000, okay? Like the more expensive events here. So I'm clicking add, and let's say I want the color to be black and the background, let's make it yellow. I can also add icons, but I won't do it now. And let's call this rule expensive events. And I can apply this to a column or to the entire row. I will apply it to the entire item. And now I'm adding the condition. And the condition is a column-based condition. So I say for this rule, it's for events that their budget is greater than or equal to, I don't know, 20,000, okay? And let's save this. Okay. So, and in the same way, you can create many other conditional formatting rules. Let's save this. And when you browse it, you got this legend here. And of course, if you have many rules, you'll have several items in the legend, and you can turn on or off the items that correspond to this rule here. Okay, so this is about conditional formatting. One more thing that I wanted to show you. Currently, I'm using the table control. Remember, table control is just a grid control, but sometimes you want to use a more responsive layout. A table is not so responsive, so you can change the content control to a list. A list control is a lot more friendly when using a handheld device, and it looks like this. So you got the first line, second, and the third line, and you have full control what to show in each one of them. To do this, I'm going now to the list control. And you got here, you see the title displays the title token, which is the title column. And here, let's click in the subtitle and insert a column. Let's display the budget control, the budget column. I'll just remove this part and show only the budget. You know what, let's display budget like this. Okay. Okay, so you see now the second line here shows the budget. And this way I can change the third line and the content here. Another thing that I want to do, you see here I have these per item icons. These are called item actions. And by default, we show these ones. This one shows the properties of the item. The second one shows sends the item by email. The last one edits the item. So I want to change them. So I'm going here again to the configure control, and I'm switching to advanced mode. And you see I got here the item actions. And let's change the last one. When I click it, I get the script editor. This is where you can completely change these actions. You need to use knockout, and you can do really whatever you want. I'm not so technical, so I'm using the available snippets. So we got these nice snippets. I'm going to use the show city in map. This snippet, if you look at it, it calls the Google Map service with the city column. So this script depends on the fact that you have in your list a column called city, which displays cities. So I'm going to use it. And I'm going just to change the icon. Let's search for something like map. Okay, I'm going to take this one, and that's it. And now let's check it. So you see the fourth action item action here looks different. You know what? Let's switch to view mode. I just want to display this as a end user. So if I click now the last icon here on the right, it will open a map and show the city in the map, okay? And I can view a larger map, and this is just an open script. Of course, you can change the window size and other parameters, but this is just an example of how customizable the Webpart is. So you can change the way it looks, the filters, the conditional formatting, the actions that you want to provide here, custom actions that you want to provide to users to make it more convenient for them. Same goes for here. The menu bar, also, it's the same trick. You can add your own custom menus here to make it, to adjust it to your end users' requirements. I think I covered more or less. Of course, you can connect it to document libraries and view folders, and you got paging, and I didn't cover everything. One more thing that I want to cover here. Yes, you see here, I see the name of the list at the top, event budget request, and 6 items. This is the header part. To change the header part, you click here, and this is where you can add a title, subtitle. What you see here is the small title and the description, okay, which shows 6 items. Everything is dynamic and you can change it using knockout. So this part is also configurable. And last thing that I wanted to show you, if you don't like the fonts or the colors or whatever, you can always go here to custom styles and open the style editor. And here you can change styles of every control that you see here on the screen. The groups, the tabs, the table, the list, whatever, okay? So the target was to really give you a display mechanism, an aggregation and display mechanism that gives you maximum flexibility to display exactly what you want in the exact way that you want, okay? So moving on, by the way, I see questions. I will take all questions at the end of the session, okay? So up until now, I just showed you the simplest example of how to add a Webpart, connect it to some data source, and then compose your layouts from these controls and configure them. Now, what I'm going to do now is show some more advanced and different examples using the same data view tools package. So I'm going to start with more of a enterprise project management scenarios. And these are typically characterized by the need to aggregate items from many project sites. It doesn't have to be project sites, it's just an example, but the need to aggregate items from many sites and from many lists. Talking about projects, if you want to aggregate upcoming tasks, upcoming milestones, delayed tasks, documents, you can also aggregate items from external sources, such as OneDrive through Graph API, and the ability to highlight important items in such a dashboard, such an EPM dashboard, like delay task or whatever. So let me go to a configured example here. This is the first example. So in my small dashboard here, I'm aggregating from multiple project sites. They can be on other site collections. It doesn't matter. So here, for example, I have a view that shows upcoming tasks divided or grouped by their status in progress or not started. Of course, I can configure the exact filters that I want to show end users and the exact menus here. And just near it, I have the delayed tasks view, which is different actions. And I have a special conditional formatting for items which are delayed over 5 days, like more than 5 days late. Completed billable milestones. You see here I'm also using conditional formatting to highlight large billable milestones. And here I have a daily calendar view of a monthly, calendar view showing just the upcoming milestones. So I mentioned the term aggregation, and I want to focus on this for a minute. In the previous example, where I connected to a single list, I could also connect to multiple lists. This was done by actually connecting manually to a list. And if I need to connect to 5 lists or 10 lists, I would have to go and manually connect to 5, 6, 7, or 10 lists, like you do with the out-of-the-box SharePoint calendar. When you need to overlay multiple calendars, you need to go one by one and connect them to your calendar. But this is not good for dynamic scenarios such as a project portal, where projects are created dynamically by the week or by the month, it doesn't matter. And you don't want to find yourself having to manually update these web parts to include new project sites that were added. So what I'm going to show you now is a different data source. It's not a SharePoint list. It's called List Aggregator, which dynamically aggregates items according to some search aggregation scope. So let's switch to edit mode, and I'm going to show you the configuration of the data source in these web parts. Okay, so let's go to the first web part on the left, the upcoming tasks one. So I'm clicking here the configure data source icon. So as you can see, I have a single data source. It's called main data source. That's the name. And the data source type is now a SharePoint list aggregator. It's not a SharePoint list anymore, like in the previous example. And as you can see, there are other data source types, like I can connect to Excel, to Graph API, to SharePoint Search, which is another way to aggregate. I'll talk about it later a bit. So I'm using the SharePoint list aggregator. So what is a SharePoint list aggregator data source? It's a query which is executed on some aggregation scope, on a site, on an entire site collection, or on specific lists. So we need to configure two things when we work with the list aggregator data source. First of all, we need to configure the query that we want to run. We're doing it not by writing some query script, but by simply selecting some list view. And why is that? Because a list view is a query definition. When you configure a list view, a SharePoint list view, it defines the columns that you want to retrieve, it defines the sorting order, and it defines the filtering. So it's actually a query definition. So all you have to do when you want to configure your query is just create the view in some empty list, it doesn't matter where, and just select the view. So here I'm using the view which is called upcoming in the task list, which is located in my current site. This list is empty. I'm not using the data in that list. I'm using the view, this view, as a query definition. Now, once we configure the query, and we got some more limitation that we can define here, we need to configure or create our aggregation scopes. These scopes will be used, the query will be executed on these or against these scopes. So I have a single scope which is called project tasks. Let's see how I configured it. And of course, you can have multiple scopes. This one is, the scope is a specific site and all its subsites. And the scope starts in this site collection slash QA, sorry, in a specific subsite even, slash QA slash aggregator. This is the top level site. And this scope is this site and all its child subsites. But an aggregation scope can also include some more refinements that refine the exact aggregation scope. So I'm going to aggregate only lists that their name includes is equal to team tasks. Okay, so I'm not going to aggregate all the tasks in this, all the lists in these sites, only lists that their title equals team tasks. And I can further limit the aggregation scope by defining also a site title pattern. And this means that I'm going to aggregate or to retrieve items only from sites that their title starts with SUB. So I'm going to ignore all other sites if there are any. And also I'm going to aggregate only specific lists of type tasks. And finally, I can add another limitation by content type. So all of these enable me to define an aggregation scope. And the query that I selected here, the view, which is a query for me, which is called upcoming, is going to be executed against all sites in these and lists in this aggregation scope. So this is dynamic. Next month or next week, when I'm going to add another project site under this root URL, it's going to be included in the results. Okay, so this is what I mean dynamic aggregation. So other than this, I added here a conditional formatting rule, as you can see, and these tabs, and that's it. Nothing special here. Same here on the right. I'm just using a different view to aggregate. Here I'm looking only for delayed tasks. So I'm using a different view, which is called late tasks. And this one brings only the tasks that their due date already passed, okay? And they are not complete. And same goes here. Again, I'm using the same aggregation, list aggregator data source, but with a different view that queries it. Okay, so this was one example of dynamic aggregation. Second example that I want to show you is organization charts. Organization chart, it looks very different, yes? But once I switch to edit mode, you'll see it's the same Webpart and it's the same trick. We connect to a data source. It's the same data sources, of course, but I'm using different controls to display the data. So in this example, I have here an org chart. It's fully dynamic. It supports multiple parents. For example, you see here, Dewey Northrop has a manager, but she also reports to another manager, to the CEO. You can see that I have different display templates for different types of employees. For example, Sonia here is an office manager, so she's configured as an assistant. She has a different display template configured. Once I click an employee, I see his employee card. All the things that you see here are fully configurable, like the actions that I see here. I got the phone. If I look at the profile, I have full control over the properties that will be displayed no matter where I take them from. It can be from Azure Active Directory, from SharePoint profile service, from a list. It doesn't matter. I have full control. I can also see the hierarchy. So this employee, for example, Tracy, these are her peers, and this is her manager, and these are the staff members. And once I click any of the employees, I go to that employee's card, and I can drill through all his connections, okay? And of course, I can call him by phone and so on. You got additional, of course, settings. You can export to various formats. And other than this, I'm sure when you see here the tabs and the here I just grouped the org chart by department. You know how I did. I'm using the tab control. It's not new, and also the filters. So let's switch to edit mode, and you'll see that it's actually the same data view Webpart. It just has different controls. So it has the filter controls you see, conditional formatting, tabs, and org chart control. Okay. Looking at the data source, this one is connected to a SharePoint list. I'm going to show you one that's connected to a Azure Active Directory in a minute. As for the org chart control, it has so many settings. You have full control over the orientation, like top down, right, left, and so on. The layouts, we got many out-of-the-box templates that you can change. Of course, you have full control what's displayed. Yeah, it's all with tokens. So if you want to change, not display just the username here in the box, but other properties, you can do it, of course. You can change the colors of employees here by using conditional formatting. For example, I want a specific user or a specific department to be displayed with different colors and so on. So everything is possible here. I'm jumping to another example here. Yeah, this one is using Azure Active Directory, and I'm bringing 5,000 users. So I just want to refresh this. And actually, this will give you a good estimate of the time that it might take to load it in the first time if you're not using caching. Here I'm not using cache, so I'm loading 5,000 items and it takes time. You see it's like 20 to 30 seconds for the first time if you're not using caching, and it depends of course on your bandwidth and on your on the day of Office 365. There are good days and there are less better days. So let's wait for it. Yeah, okay. So what happens here, because I'm not using caching, I'm not using cache, you see that the pictures still do not appear because they are still being retrieved behind the scenes. And this happens only in the first time if you are not using cache. When you're using cache, and this is the recommended setup, of course, with Graph API, you won't have this large delay, but it's good that you see it because you see the real experience when you're using the first time without cache. Okay, so I'm gonna let's set up first the data source and see what's different. So here I have a single data source, and you see that the data source type is now Graph API. For those of you who are not too technical, Graph API is actually a hub. It's a unified API to access all Microsoft 365 resources, meaning Azure Active Directory, OneDrive, Exchange Online, and so on. So you're using one unified API, which is very convenient for software developers to connect and retrieve information. So once you select Graph API, you see all these properties. And these actually are the properties of Graph API. Now, for me, as a non-technical users, I will know what to put here in graph path and in selected columns and in filter statement, sort statement, and so on. That's why we created the Graph API examples. And it depends on which web part you're using, you'll see different examples. Now I'm using the org chart web part, so I'm seeing examples which are relevant to an org chart. If you're using the calendar web part, you'll see different examples from Graph API. So I was using here the org chart users example, and once I select it, it populates all these properties for me. Of course, if you are the administrator who connects this Webpart to your Azure Active Directory, you are more knowledgeable than me, I guess. So you know if you want to retrieve more columns than what we offer here by default, or if you want to change the filter statement, and so on. So we give you a um, full access to the API to change whatever you want. You can also limit the number. Here I have 5,000 items, and that's it. So this is another example of displaying the chart. Oh, you see here now it brought all the pictures while I was talking. But again, this is without cache. This is about the org chart examples. Oh, sorry, I had one more that I wanted you to see, which is important. Yeah, additional example of the org chart API of the org chart web part is the company directory. Uh, I guess you don't see any org chart here, but as you saw, I can change with these controls, I can change the display control. So here I change the display control from an org chart to a table, but it's connected to the same data sources. I'm showing different filters here because I want it to be more like a phone book, which is easier to search rather than org chart. Finally, I have here another example of org chart connected to a SharePoint profile service. Sometimes when you're using our Webpart in SharePoint 2019 server, so you're not working with Azure Active Directory, and you want to show your organization chart, you better connect to your SharePoint profile service, which is synchronized with your Active Directory. So you can see on the right, I'm showing my personal hierarchy. So it's me and the employees that report to me. So let me just show you how it's configured. So I'm talking about the web part here on the right. Okay, so I'm just clicking here the data source. So you see now the data source is not Graph API, it's SharePoint user profiles. And there are only two properties when I'm using this data source. By default, it's the current user, or if I want to show a different top level employee in the chart, I just need to put his login, like his email. And also how many numbers, how many levels of the org chart I want to show by default. Okay, so these were the examples all about org chart. Next scenarios that I want to show you, which are very common, are the calendar scenarios. Calendar scenarios, let me just go there with my slides. Oh, sorry. Just a second. Okay, so I'm here. So calendar scenarios are very similar to aggregation scenarios. Most requirements that I see from customers are give me a calendar that can aggregate events from many SharePoint sites. Because today with SharePoint out of the box, all I can do is manually add up to 10 or 12, I don't remember, calendars manually, and it will do an overlay of them. But there's no way to do a dynamic aggregation like I showed you with tasks in an EPM scenario. Same thing with a calendar. I would like to show all the upcoming billable milestones in one consolidated view, in one calendar. And this aggregation needs to be dynamic, not static. So I can aggregate from 100 lists, not just from 10. So this is one scenario. Another scenario is give me a calendar that, and of course, every source should have different colors according to various criteria and so on. And another common scenario, common requirement is give me a calendar that shows an overlay of our company or our team calendar along with my personal Outlook, or along with group calendars or exchange shared calendars. So all of these can be done with the calendar Webpart. So I'm going, too many tabs I have here, sorry. Let me just get rid of the ones that just confuse me. Yeah, so this is my, I don't know, calendar dashboard. So you see here three calendar Webparts. The main one, the biggest one, just shows my personal Outlook. I added conditional formatting rules, as you can see, according to the event category from Outlook, same categories. So I added personal, meetings, and important, and I can turn on and off the relevant one that I don't want to see. For example, I switched my personal events off because I don't want you to see my personal events, okay? And by default, it shows the monthly view. Of course, you can have weekly, daily. There are many more other views like agenda view, annual view, and so on. I added filters by category and subject. And here I have on the right side a shared exchange calendar. And finally, here I have an R&D group calendar, a SharePoint group calendar. And this one is configured to show a daily view. Let's switch to edit mode. I just want to show you how I configured these ones, especially how I connected to a data source to Exchange online, okay, and to group calendars. I'm still waiting for the page to show me edit mode. Yeah, okay. So I'm clicking here the data source configuration. Okay, I have a single data source, as you can see, and it's called main data source. And again, it's Graph API. And here, when I'm using a calendar display, you see different graph examples relevant to calendar. So here I was using the My Calendar example, and when I chose it, it just auto-populated these properties with these parameters. And of course, I can change the columns that I retrieve and the filtering and everything. I didn't do anything. Next, you got the column mapping. Now, when you work with a calendar, also with an org chart, I didn't say it, but you need to map the data source properties that you retrieve to the displayed properties in the calendar. Like, for example, which of the retrieved properties from Graph API should be displayed as the subject of the event, which is the first thing you see, right? And there are other properties that you have with an event, like a location description. So you have to map between the data source columns that you retrieve to these properties. The mandatory one are subject and start date, because there is no event without a subject and a start date. All others are optional. Another thing that you need to configure is the column display properties. What are these? When you click an event, you got this view item form, right? But this is not a view item form. If I was connected to a list, it was the regular view item form. But here I'm not connected to a list. I'm connected to a different source. It's Graph API. So it's a kind of a view item form, but it's our form. And you have full control over the properties that will be displayed here in this pop-up when the user clicks it. So you control which properties, the order of their display, and also how each of these properties will be rendered. Should it be rendered like a string, like a number, like a link, hyperlink, or like a picture? So going back to the data source settings here, to the column display settings, you add these properties. Of course, we give you the default, but you can change the properties that are added here, their order, and how they are rendered. Okay, so this is, and also like all other cases, you can add color coding. Now in calendar, color coding by source might have a meaning, because in calendar you might want to add manually several data sources and display them in an overlay. So I could do in this calendar, add another data source, which may be connected to a calendar list in SharePoint, and have it display with different colors. Okay, so using color coding is relevant when you have more than one data source and you want to have different colors per the data source. In this case, I'm connected only to a single data source, Graph API, and I configured colors not by the source, but by the category of the event. So it's super flexible. You can do either way. Let's go to the last one here, the group calendar. I just want to show you how a group calendar is configured. So it's also connected to Graph API, but here I chose the last example, group calendar. Okay, and when you choose it, you need to have here the group ID. You can take it from Outlook, you can take it from Teams. In the upcoming version, we'll give you here a selector, an icon. When you select, it will show you all your groups and you'll be able to select. So now it's less convenient, you have to copy it, but it's coming soon. Okay, so this is about the data sources when you want to connect to Exchange Online or to group calendars. I want also to show you some settings of the calendar control itself. Okay, so I'm clicking here on the calendar control configuration icon. And these are actually quite standards for calendar controls, not just SharePoint calendar controls. So first property here is the start view. So this means what is the default calendar view that will be displayed when you open the page. So I chose the monthly view. You got many other views, okay, daily, weekly. For each you have an agenda view and a list view, you have an annual view, and so on. Show these views enables you to display these buttons here, which enables a user to switch between the views. So you control exactly which views the user will have here and will be able to switch between them. Show only business days means don't show me weekend. So you see only Monday to Friday, because I switched this on. Allow text to wrap, okay, this also. If I switch to advanced mode, it will show some more properties like maximum content height. If you don't want the Webpart to be very long, sometimes users put very long text in the subject. It might cause the Webpart to grow. So you can limit the content height, the Webpart height, and you'll see a scroll bar. Same, you can limit the number of events displayed in each cell here. The business days, by default, we take the business days from the current site, but you can change it. Additional thing, you see, by default, when I click an event, it opens this property page, but you can change it. You can change the on-click event to something else. Okay, so this is here. You see the event click. If I click it, again, you see our script editor, and you can choose one of our snippets, or you can add your own knockout code, and you can bind it with the data that we retrieve from the data source by using these objects. So again, it is super flexible. Last thing that I wanted to show you, I'm going back for a second to my, sorry, it's not the last thing, it's two more things that I want to show you. Next thing I wanted to show you are, up until now, you saw our ready-to-use controls. These were table control, list control, calendars, all kind of calendars, all kind of org charts. I just showed you one or two org charts, but there are plenty of templates. But there, you can also, sometimes users want to display their own custom control, like not any of our controls, you want something else. So the Data View Plus Webpart offers a custom control, which is actually a container of HTML, which is integrated with our knockout or our tokens. So you can create the exact layout that you want. I'll show you two examples. Going back to my other browser, I think. Yeah. So let's have a look at this org chart. Okay. This org chart actually uses one of the data sources to aggregate risks from risk lists, and then it displays them in a risk matrix standard format. Now, how was it implemented? Very simple. We just took an HTML layout of a regular risk matrix. As you can see, I'm using here the custom control. This one is available only in the Data View Plus Webpart. And if I go here and configure this control, you can see that it's actually just HTML. Okay, but this HTML includes our knockout binding, so you can connect to our data. Okay, so you got all of this, and we provide some HTML snippets, so you can use them as a starter. You can also use our scripts and our help guide. So this gives you really absolute control over what you want to display, integrated with our data sources. Okay, in this case, this org chart is connected to a SharePoint list. Okay, it brings these risks from a SharePoint list. Okay, last thing that I wanted to mention is the ability to use these web parts inside Teams. Oh, I think I clicked. Yeah, sorry, I clicked. It's a link. Okay, so you can use the data view tools package inside Teams. Actually, it's very simple. After you add the data view tools package to your tenant app catalog, you'll see this sync to Teams button in the ribbon in your app catalog. So once you click it, it is synced. That's it. Now you go to your Teams environment, you add a new tab, you will see, along with the other apps available, the Data View Plus package. You select it, add it, and save, and that's it. You'll see our web part. You can change to any of the web parts included in the Data View tools. And that's it. You'll see the same settings pages, and you'll have your web part inside Teams. So it's that simple. That's about it. All these web parts are available for free trial for unlimited time. Okay, you'll just see a message saying thank you for trying web part, blah blah blah. To get to the web parts, everything is there: documentation, training videos, and so on. You go to a website, quizcom.com, and you go under Microsoft 365 apps and data visualization tools subcategory. You'll see all these SPFX web parts. Okay, where Data View Plus, the first one, is the superset. This web part includes all the others. Okay, so you go there and you can download, or you can email us and ask for a private sandbox if you don't want or cannot install the package on your tenant, you don't have the permissions or whatever, you can send us an email to sales at quizcom.com and ask for a private sandbox. We will create a site collection for you on our tenant for you to be able to play with the product for as long as you want and see if it works for you the way you expect.